All right, so we've dried our second layer of grass in our little tree, and we're gonna do another layer on this tree and brighten it up. We want some really pretty bright color, but we need that dark foundation. So let's take small brush cleaned out and red, maybe with a little tiny bit of green, but not very much. Mostly just red. And we're just going to start putting that on top of that shadow layer. So when I do this, I'm thinking about leaving some of the dark edges showing. We want them to still be somewhat visible. And we'll end up putting in some little branches too that peek through the canopy. So this is a very bright red, and it is showing up nicely. Let's put a little gold in that red. Let's just change it up. See if we get a little. We'll do several layers so we have some variety. The gold didn't really do a whole lot. It's still pretty red. Now if I just take gold while it's wet and dab that in with the red, it'll start to blend and I'll get some pretty effects. Also just a lighter layer of color. We want this to look like one of those fall trees that you just have to stop and stare at because it's so bright. Okay, that's one layer of color. So now let's add some orange with just a little red in it. Maybe a little bit of bright yellow too. Just get a lighter fall color going and see if we can see that. Yeah, that shows up. I'm going to add a tiny bit of white. I don't want to add too much white because it will make it look more pastel-y instead of vivid. So there, that's orange, yellow, a tiny bit of white. That's got some bright color. And I'm just picking spots to focus that color, that highlight. And then maybe I'll pull a little bit of that bright past the dark first layer that we had, just to kind of soften that edge up a little. That's looking pretty fallish. What if we just put a little tiny bit of bright yellow? kind of blend it back in so it's not quite so loud. Still want red to be the dominant color. Just adds a little extra light. And I'll grab a liner brush, a small brush. This little tiny brush will give us some little branches inside the canopy. I'll use the brown or blue-orange mix to make a brown. A little more orange, maybe a little red. There we go. That looks like a decent brown. Try to pull all the excess paint off that brush so that I can get a thin line. And then just come in here and paint some little branches. Just barely touch the canvas or you'll make a thicker line than you intended to. Just barely touch it. I feel like I need a darker color. There we go. So we can just pull branches back into the tree. Every once in a while you'll see a branch out here that's just past the canopy. Barely touching the canvas. I don't want those to get heavy. All right, so that's a pretty bright tree. I think I'll add a little more gold to the trunk so he stands out. That's nice. And then we'll go back to our grass and bring some bright color into that. So let's go with a little orange mixed into our gold. And we're just going to do that short brush stroke pull up to suggest grass. Little short brush strokes. And then come down and do another layer of those little short brush strokes. And that probably is enough with the big brush, so let's go to the small flat brush and try to do something a little more individual. Okay, so white, yellow, gold, lighter. And we're just going to start pulling. That might be a little too bright, too much white in it. Soften that back in. Go back to gold. Maybe a little green mixed into the gold. And adding orange to dull it a little bit. A little green doesn't hurt in there. Just kind of randomly add that green in here and there. Back to gold. Maybe just a little random orange too. Since the paint's wet, I can go pretty bold with pure orange and it's just going to blend in with the other colors. So that's good. Back to gold. I want to see some little grass above the base of the trees. Need this to blend a little more. Maybe I'll incorporate a little darker grasses in there too. Had some brown mixed up. And back to gold. It's our main color. So we kind of get the idea of some grass. I'll go back in and soften some of those. And I don't know, maybe a little more of a warm green on our trees in the background. So to make that warm green, I'll use the green plus some yellow gold. And a little bit of orange. I think that's a good color. Let's see if we put a little bit of that. I like that. Just to give us a little more variety back there. Warm it up a little. And what do we think? Do we have a happy little fall tree? You can play with adding more color to your tree if you want to make it even brighter. You could definitely incorporate more yellow into it. I'm still a fan of the red and orange. Kind of knock that back a little. That's kind of... Yeah, you could play with this. But I think that is... Ooh, maybe I want a little red in the grass down here too. I like that. Just warms the field up. Not a whole lot, just here and there. Yeah, so that is a happy little fall tree painting that you can play with. And I hope you enjoy it. And I think we're going to try watercolor next time, is what Bailey said. So I will be painting with you soon. Thanks.